Hi, I'm Caitlin Kickoff, the Education Program Manager with the American Anthropological Association. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a white woman in my 20s with blonde hair, sitting in front of a blurred virtual background. Welcome to our Anthropology Day kickoff call. We are excited to celebrate with you this year and to take time to share ideas for this year's event with everyone. On today's call, I want to let everyone know that we do have a captioner. And when we have a live captioner on a call, it's important to try to slow down when you're speaking, which you'll notice I'm going to be more aware of as we move through this call. I tend to be someone who speaks a little fast. This is our 8th Anthro Day, and each year we hear about new and exciting events hosted by schools, communities, workplaces, and museums. We encourage participants to use Anthro Day as a way to share anthropology with a broader audience, whether that means presenting to local schools, hosting a trivia night on your campus, or leveraging your existing social media to bring awareness to the field. Today, we're going to hear from past participants and give you an opportunity to brainstorm your own events in breakout rooms. With us are presenters who each represent a different audience within Anthro Day: campuses, museums, and community outreach. We have Maria Sprain, Professor of Anthropology at Montgomery College, Carol Hart, Director of the Greensboro History Museum, and Francesco Vietti, Giovanna Santanero, Leone Michelini, representing Anthro Day Milan. I'm going to turn it over to Maria to learn more about Montgomery College's experiences with Anthropology Day now.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the introduction, Caitlin. I am Maria Sprain. I'm a professor of anthropology at Montgomery College. I have brown hair, I'm wearing glasses, and I'm wearing a long-sleeved black t-shirt which says Anthro Day 2017 on it. And I will just be talking about what Montgomery College has done over the past years for Anthropology Day. Oh, and my background is in my office. There's a plant and some books. And I will just begin a PowerPoint to show you what Montgomery College has done over the years for Anthropology Day. It's a celebration that we really, really enjoy. And let me bring up the PowerPoint here. Okay. Okay, so Montgomery College, Anthropology. Montgomery College is a community college in Maryland, in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. We have a large student body and lots of connections to the surrounding community. So I thought what I would do is just highlight the benefits of having Anthropology Day at Montgomery College. And they are highlighting the discipline within the college. We have a small discipline, but a steady one. So we're always looking for more students to take anthropology, and we are also focused on demonstrating the importance of anthropology to all majors and all career paths. And this is something that we've been rather successful in more recently. We also enjoy Anthropology Day because we are able to connect to the community. We also are able to showcase faculty research. We have a lot of really great part-time faculty teaching anthropology, and we are able to highlight the research that they are doing. Anthropology Day also provides students with leadership roles, and so it's really great to connect with students in that way, in preparing for the events and also in carrying the events out. And it's fun. We always have fun on Anthropology Day. is the highlight of the spring semester for me. So the process of celebrating Anthropology Day at Montgomery College is, first of all, we choose events, then we advertise through college calendars, we use flyers and social media, and during the events we take lots of pictures, and then we report out through the college newspaper and also through social media. And luckily for us, even during the pandemic, we've been able to keep Anthropology Day going through virtual events. This is just an example of a flyer from 2017, where we celebrated Anthropology Day with a talk by one of our part-time faculty, Bethany Kibler. Her talk was called Sex and Danger, the Gender Work of the US Military's Cultural Turn. Then we also had a display of our bones collection, and we set up the display near the cafeteria so that we would have a lot of traffic going by, and students helped with that. And then we also showed the documentary Story Tumbuna. Other examples of events include the guest speakers, displays, and I'll give you some examples of what we've done. We've visited local schools. We have on-campus activities, documentary screenings, and we've also had contests. So for guest speakers, we have relied on our part-time faculty, but we have also invited anthropologists from different parts of the country. Last year, we had Miguel Villar talk about using DNA to trace human migration. We had Matt Arts join us to talk about the value of anthropology in business. And then we had Amelia Tseng talk about language and identity. And this was all Zoom, so it was really well attended, and students and participants had lots of questions. Another speaker, just as an example, was Jeannie Robinson. She talked about her work in the Maya area in her talk titled Ritual Places in the Maya Area. Some of the displays that we have put together for Anthropology Day include, as I mentioned before, the Bone Clones table. On the left-hand side, there's a picture of me. It's actually a fake selfie. A student is holding the phone. My arm is not that long, but you can see the students in the background enjoying, sharing their knowledge of the primates that we have out on the table. And then on the right-hand side, we have a table set up by Tara Tetrell and Ron Nunn, and it's a table of examples of pottery and projectile points found on archaeological digs. A couple of years ago, we did a program focused on globalization and food, and there was a Snickers candy bar table. This was a display set up by Barbara Wolf, Tanya Ikaza, and Amy Caratini. And here students explored a familiar example of the ongoing globalization of food production and consumption patterns, and they were even able to sample candy from around the world. This was right before the pandemic made everything remote. And then we also visit local schools. Here's an image of me. I'm also wearing an Anthropology Day t-shirt. That's from 2018, and I'm standing next to a research assistant who's also wearing the same Black Anthropology Day t-shirt. And we are talking about a bonobo, and that's a bonobo skeleton that I'm touching there. So we've done presentations for the pre-K school that is attached to Montgomery College, and the young students are such terrific observers. They really got into it, and it's really very fun. And we've gone all the way up to high schools to do these kinds of presentations. Just as an example of what we do is we bring the bone clones and we set up a display. We show videos of primate behavior, and then the type of activity that we have done. One type of activity is to have students compare humans to apes in a chart. And you can see on the right, there's a chart that lists the trait. So language, laugh, knuckle walk, bipedal, or walking on two legs. And then students would check off whether this was something that characterized humans and whether it was something that characterized apes. For the younger grades, we would also bring a book called Me, Jane, which talks about the life of Jane Goodall in a very accessible and sweet way. And then, of course, there are many activities, including here is an image of a Flint napping lesson. So students are lined up here on a picnic table bench, and they are wearing goggles and knocking rocks together to learn how to make stone tools. And then we also have an atlatl throwing competition. So an atlatl is an ancient spear thrower. At our Germantown campus, we have a very beautiful golf driving range, and that's where we have set up to have the spear throwing competition. And then, of course, documentary screenings are pretty easy to put together. Just two examples are Story Tumbuna, Ancestors' Tales. This is something that we did in 2017. And students, faculty, and staff view the documentary, and then we discuss the importance of laughter, which is part of the documentary. And then in 2020, some of our faculty showed the documentary A Place at the Table and then hosted a discussion afterwards. And then contests. One of the more fun contests was a selfie contest. The prompt was, what does it mean to be human? And here in this image, you can see a student, Mayana Berman, and her quote is, being human is having opposable thumbs and a sense of guilt. And in her selfie, you can see that she's holding an enormous Cadbury chocolate bar and making a slightly guilty face as if she was going to eat the whole candy bar. And I just am wrapping up with an image of maybe about 12 students, a colleague of mine in the classroom. And this image was taken after a long discussion about race and ethnicity. And we really did have a lot of fun, and we enjoy connecting with the students. And so that's it for now. That's just some of the highlights of what we've been doing for Anthropology Day over the years. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. It's really exciting to see all of the different things that you've done over the years and how Anthropology Day has progressed at Montgomery College from its inception to today. We're now going to pass it over to Carol Hart, the director of the Greensboro History Museum, to hear how they've celebrated Anthropology Day in the past.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Carol Gorsey Hart, the director of the Greensboro History Museum in North Carolina. I am an older white woman speaking to you from my museum office with a lot of books and some posters in the background. I have brown hair with distinguished gray coming in as well. That's about waist length. So I guess for us, and my presentation is going to be very, very different from the previous one. It was more like Anthropology Hour at the museum. While we've done other programs over the years, in fact, for about 7 years now, we've had an Archaeology Day in November that we partner with our local university, UNCG, their anthropology department, and faculty and students, archaeologists come in And we do a big festival kind of thing with a lot of activities from our educators dealing with archaeology. But anthropology has been something that I talk a lot with our staff and community, because I have to explain why an anthropologist is the director of a history museum, and why a lot of what I'm doing is actually very much from an anthropological perspective. So last year, I thought it was a wonderful opportunity because so many of us are more familiar with Zooms in our community, my community, the members, our staff, other people that we could reach, that I thought what a great opportunity on Anthropology Day to have a conversation with an anthropologist and just explore, talk, have some dialogue to get a better sense of what anthropologists do in many different contexts and what anthropology is. So we had started a project in 2020, and I will share my screen now, that, okay, was really a response to the events of the spring of 2020, the murder of George Floyd in our local community. As a museum, we were really stepping outside of our box from the time I got here. And I will say, in part, I was hired to be the director of this history museum because I was an anthropologist, because I was an outsider, because I had an anthropological perspective that my boss thought would be useful in trying to redirect the community's perception of what a museum is, as well as the practice of how we did our work here. So that's always been very much part of what I've done here. And through the pandemic, through the impact on our community of the murder of George Floyd, through protest, and particularly the community response through art making and place making in our downtown area, I really felt even more so the connection with anthropological fieldwork to some extent. And I have an image up you can see with actually, I am on the street in front of a truck with some media as we went downtown to save some of the murals that were starting to be taken down. There's a lot more to that story, but staff and I went downtown. Here's another image where you can see some of the murals that went up downtown in support of our African American community, in support of Black Lives Matter, incredible works of art. As I mentioned over and over again to many of the people in our community, we're not an art museum, we are a history museum, but these things did reflect some of the stories of our community. And our job through 2020, including the pandemic, was to document and preserve as much as possible the times we were living through, and to make sure that we were getting as diverse a story as possible. On this screen, again, you see some of our staff, our curators, our volunteers, not only collecting the art murals that went up, but the stories of the artists, the business owners, the community members that participated. There were blocks and blocks and blocks of these murals that went up, some by professional artists, but most by amateurs, many more in the line of graffiti, folk art kinds of things. Here's a slide. You can see our curative education is in the middle, as well as interns, artists, videographers, people we worked with. Use your voice is the message on the mural you see behind them. We turned after collecting, when we collected these murals towards the end of June 2020, we weren't really sure exactly what we were going to do with them. But within 10 weeks, we had mounted a display called Pieces of Now, Murals, Masks, Community Stories, and Conversations that contained some of the murals, as well as things associated with protesters, artists, like T-shirts and megaphones, as well as words that had shown up on the sidewalk. You'll see in this image, it's the image of the first gallery in our exhibit, Pieces of Now, which contains, in addition to some of the arts, videos, and on the floor is a photograph of some words that showed up one morning downtown, a poem, Dear White People. A lot of interviews, context here between photographers, artists, protesters. This is one of the photographs that actually went viral internationally of downtown protest, with many of the people in the background are artists that we ended up working with and getting stories, including here, Pastor Michael Harris. The little girl, the image photograph is of a protest with a little white girl who ran up and just grabbed the hand of a protester, a Black African-American man. And I guess the sentiment of this should reach people's hearts. And we went on to interview all of them. We collected posters and have a virtual exhibit as well that people can go through of this exhibit. I'm going to stop my share now. So what I wanted to do is discuss some of the themes that came out in here with an anthropologist. And really, I just looked at some anthropologists connected with universities in our state, made a phone call out of the blue to Glenn Hinson at UNC in Chapel Hill, who's a folklorist anthropologist, and said, hey, will you have a conversation with me on Anthropology Day about art and some of what we're doing here in folklore? And he said, fine. So our project that day was really, we tried to make it as casual as possible, sort of a chat with Carol. We really were hoping that different people in our membership, our community, and for me, that my staff would just listen in and be part of the conversation that we were having about what we were doing, how it relates to anthropology, how my background was helpful in the work we were doing. And it was really a wonderfully engaging day. And I guess one of my messages is, while it's wonderful to set up a whole day of programs, just even a 1-hour program highlighting anthropology and what anthropology can be very effective as well. And that's it for me for now.
Thank you, Carol. I think that's a wonderful message to share with this group, that your Anthropology Day event can be whatever you want it to be, on whatever scale you want it to be. It can be something small, or it can be something very large. Just the idea is sharing anthropology and getting the message out in whatever way it makes sense for you and your community and your audience. And I think the way that you were able to do that and draw in your exhibit that you were working on was really wonderful. And I appreciate you sharing that with this group. And now I want to pass it over to the Anthropology Day Milan group, Anthro Day Milan, to share with us what they've done in the past.
Okay, hi everybody. First of all, thank you so much for inviting us. This is Giovanna. I'm in my 30s. I'm white. I have brown hair, brown eyes. I'm wearing a black sweater and I'm sitting in my living room. I'm part of the Anthro Day Milano group since the very beginning. when in 2019 we decided to bring the Antro Day to Italy for the first time, and to Milano in particular. By doing so, we wanted to bring anthropology outside the academia into the city of Milan. And here you can see a map of the events we organized in 2019, blue spots, and 2020, yellow spots. As you can see, the events were spread all around the city of Milano, well beyond the city center. And every year we host almost 40 events. Each event is led by at least one anthropologist and another professional coming from another discipline. And by doing so, we want to show the public what anthropologists know and what they can do. And this is because we hope that people will feel that they need more anthropology in their work and perhaps in their life more generally. We organize all the events into 3 categories. The first one is talk, and perhaps is the most traditional one. And here you can see a picture of a room full of people from our 2019 edition. The second category is walking tours in the neighborhoods of Milano. And here is a picture of a walking tour led by an anthropologist and an art historian. The walking tour was taking place in a public art park in Milano. And finally, perhaps our favorite category of events, the workshops. And here is a picture of a food anthropology workshop where you can see people cooking together. As a group, we are active beyond the World Anthropology Day, as we are engaged in public anthropology projects all the year round. And here is an example. During the first lockdown in 2020, we decided to open a blog called The Right Distance, a small ethnographic observatory on isolation, as a way to reflect upon what we were experiencing from an anthropological perspective and share this with the wide public. In the summer 2020, when the lockdown was somehow lifted, we transformed the blog into an exhibition in a small ethnographic museum in the mountain close to Milan. And the title of the exhibition was 10 Objects at, from the End of the World in Light of Cultural Anthropology. And then the 2021 virtual edition, when we were forced to go virtual. And here you can see the picture of a dinosaur during a Zoom call as a funny way to communicate this. Even though we were virtual, we didn't give up to our interactive dimension, as we believe, as the other colleagues already said, that the Antro Day should be instructive, yes, but also fun. We want people to have a pleasure time, because we hope that they will think of anthropologists not only as very serious people criticizing and deconstructing everything, but also as nice people to work with. And so we tried to keep this interactive dimension even if we were virtual. And here are some examples. We organized a virtual exhibition. The title was Visionary Objects, an inventory of possible futures. And here is a picture from this exhibition. showing an upside down shopping cart on a lake. Other examples, we organized a media anthropology workshop with high school students who were experiencing online schooling. And here is a picture of the students at their desks during the workshop, or the Hacking Barbie workshop, where the participants in front of the screen were asked to manipulate the plastic body of a Barbie as a way to reflect upon their human body. And now I leave the floor to Leone, who will tell more about our 2022 edition.
Hello everyone, I'm Leone Michelini from the University of Messina and Milano Antro Day team. I'm 28 years old, white anthropologist. I'm wearing a shirt and green glasses. I briefly introduce our fourth edition of 2020. On the slide you can see our title, Never Alone but at least in two, and our logo. We are showing the skyline of Milano in purple on a blue background to demonstrate the close bond we want to maintain between our events and the city of Milan and its inhabitants. The opening conference, Never Alone at least into the know-how that comes from collaboration, will be attended by 5 couples of speakers made up by an anthropologist and a non-anthropologist, speaking about the possible collaboration between anthropology, economics, biology, art and geology. For example, the first talk will be Anthropology and Geology of the volcano Vesuvio in Naples. And this year, after the 2019 online, as Giovanna said, edition, we have around 40 events in the 3 different categories, both face-to-face and online. To summarize the different kind of our activities, I give 3 simple examples. So as a talk, we have local and global stories. The role of anthropology in health promotion is a talk organized by Doctors Without Borders and anthropologists who collaborate with them. And in particular, in some projects all around the world, and in some projects made up during the pandemics in Milan and in the prison of the city of Milan. Secondly, as a workshop, we have Which Kind of History? Books Without Stereotypes, are 2 events with adults and with children between 3 years old and 6 years old. And the anthropology will lead the audience in reading books without stereotypes in order to counter gender inequalities in education. In conclusion, as walking tours, we have by bike, the social practices of cycle. We will take people through the city of Milan to anthropologically reflect on the different form of cycling, from professional cyclists to riders working, for example, in the food or delivery industry. In conclusion, we leave on the last slide our goals for the future, for the 2023 edition. We are working on our communication strategies, in particular in order to reach new audiences, non-anthropological audiences, and to reach the world of enterprises and business. To give an opportunity to our students to meet the enterprises and other kind of professionals. On the last slide, we leave our social media contacts to follow our activities during the 3 days of Antro Day Milan of this year, from 17 to 19 of February. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's so exciting to hear how you're able to engage the community and also do so much cross-disciplinary work. I want to open it up to the audience to ask a few questions to our presenters before we split off into breakout rooms to discuss everyone's plans for Anthropology Day. So if anyone has any questions for our presenters, we have a few minutes where we can ask those. You can either type them into the chat or you're welcome to come off mute and ask.
Oh, I came off mute, but I for some reason my camera's muted. Anyway, this is Carrie Brando in University of Memphis. I'm curious, we're trying to plan some things sort of for the first, we're hoping to go big, like all of you. Those were such great presentations. But my question is, to what extent are students involved in helping plan some of these events? Can anybody speak to that from experience?
Hi, this is Maria Sprain. Hi, Carrie. That's a good question. Well, I guess there's two parts to the answer. When we were face-to-face and I was seeing students regularly, they were quite involved, particularly in the displays. We also had an anthropology club, and that would be the group that would really take this on, and they would work with me. And it was wonderful to give students these leadership roles and be a part of it. When the college went virtual, it was much harder. And in fact, they didn't have any roles in the virtual production. But that doesn't mean that it can't happen. I just think it involves a lot more work. But it is really terrific for the students to be involved. So as much as possible is my answer.
And can I just ask a follow-up in terms of that? Did they lead the vision as well, or was it sort of an assistant type roles? The idea,
that's a really good
sorting through. Like, to what extent do the faculty lead out, and can we encourage our students to be the vision?
I would encourage them, especially the ones that you already know, or if you have a particular class that you think would like to take on that role, or the club. I can say from experience, I've had some students who picked the documentary and did most of the work. And then other years, it was pretty much me delegating and hoping that they would answer their email. So it just depends.
Any other questions for our presenters before we go into breakout rooms? Okay, so we are going to split out into breakout rooms for just about maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And I'm going to have my colleague, Daniel, put the discussion questions into the chat. So if you want to check your chat, they should be popping up here shortly, and I'll read them aloud once they're available. So we have, what have you done for Anthro Day in the past? What are you planning for this year? How do you identify and communicate with your audience? And then what challenges are you facing? And these are really just meant to sort of guide your group. You're welcome to talk about whatever it is that you feel is pressing for your Anthro Day or your situation. This time is just for you to talk to your colleagues about Anthro Day, about your department and how you want to structure your event. And with that said, if you are using the captions or rely on the captions for this event, please do not go to your breakout room. Please stay in the main room, as that's where our captioner will be. And we will pause the recording during the breakout rooms. All right, so we will send you to breakout rooms shortly. Thank you.
So hi everyone, my name is Kenny Latta. I'm an instructor in the Department of Anthropology at University of Memphis. And I was sharing in our group, we have done Anthropology Day for several years. We've often framed our Anthropology Day around things like film screening and discussion, or a guest lecture, or setting up a table in our university center to talk about anthropology. But this year, I think, and Ted, jump in if I'm not characterizing this fairly, but I think our conversation was that because of COVID, we've lost out on a lot of sort of community connection in our department, like the opportunities for students and faculty to just be humans together and connect with each other. So what we are doing, we're going to experiment with, is what we're calling an Anthropology Week. And we've all made a commitment as a faculty to sort of reduce the workload in our classes for that week, to give students a bit of breathing room to engage in more social kinds of activities with each other. But as a faculty, we didn't want to define what those activities would be, so we put together a request for proposals, an RFP, but we're calling it a request for play instead, and inviting students to submit ideas for activities they would like to host for faculty and students to participate in during that week. And we'll have a small budget available to help with supplies and other materials for students who are willing to host those things. And we'll see where it goes. Our hope is that it just sort of gives a bit of life to the department that maybe has been inhibited a bit by COVID and all of the things we've had to do to work around the public health crisis. Ted, what would you say differently?
The only thing that I would maybe add to that is that we've been looking at all of our programs in light of anti-racism, decolonization, gender justice, and one of the things that occurred in that process was the idea that a traditional lecture series or a traditional video series may be a form of social reproduction that's not exactly in line with the broader goals that we have in mind. And so to flip control and put control into the hands of the students may be a part of that process. We're experimenting.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really fun, and I agree. I think giving students an opportunity to have a say in the activities that are scheduled will be really exciting for them. One thing that came out in the small group that I was in, or that I had brought up to the small group that I was in, is that we recognize this is still going to be a difficult year. Last year, the challenge was, okay, now we're virtual. We have to do virtual. There's really no other option. So this is the plan moving forward. This year, the challenge is we might not know if we can do in person or virtual. Our campus might have certain restrictions that we have to work around, but it might not be clear if we can have in-person events, or our in-person events might have restrictions, or we might be waiting on caseloads in our area, and we might have to have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C. So there's a lot of challenges that different campuses, communities, workplaces face this year that make it difficult to plan your event. So one piece of advice that I would give is to not try to do too much this year. We recognize that it's going to be a challenging year, just like last year was, and to just remember that the spirit of Anthropology Day is to share anthropology, get people excited about it in whatever way you can do that, in whatever way your students, your employees, your colleagues whatever way they get excited about it with you.
This is Daniel. I'm a colleague on AAA staff, and in case you can't see me, I'm a middle-aged white person with brown hair that goes down to my chin on the left side. I'm wearing black frame glasses, and I have on a maroon t-shirt and a gray suit jacket. And just thinking about some of the questions in my breakout group and what I'm hearing also in common with some of these other things, we were talking about how do you make connections maybe between a 2-year and a 4-year school? How do you make connections with a K-12 school that's near you? How do you make connections with the students in your department? Like what Ted was just talking about, to come in when they're sort of zoomed out, but also motivate them to make those connections within the department and do something interesting and new. And I feel like what I'm hearing as a common thread is that all of these different programs, they're about using anthropology as ways of making connections between people around anthropology. And so they learn about anthropology by participating in these things. But I think it's really appropriate that anthropology, like the reason or I guess I should speak for myself, the reason I'm an anthropologist rather than a psychologist is that I think that groups of people are more interesting than individual people. What we do together is a better unit of analysis. And so I think it's, bringing that perspective to say, how might we build community? And then also that the anthropology that we specifically talk about is kind of the focus of it just for today. But especially now, and like Caitlin was saying, coming out of all of this pandemic uncertainty, that it's great to have this as a way to build community around this discipline that we all care about and want to promote. And so I really just want to thank everyone for all of your different innovative and thoughtful ways of doing that at every different scale level. If it's in one classroom, if it's in a whole city, if it takes an hour, if it takes a week, if it takes a month, all of these different options are there, and it's flexible to whatever works for you. And I'm so excited to hear about all the different things that people are planning. I hope you got some great ideas on today's call as well. So I just wanted to say that and make that connection for everyone. What else? What else are people doing? I think we can take maybe 5 more minutes if anybody wanted to report out what you heard or what you're going to do now that you've learned from speaking with colleagues in the breakout.
Well, I would like to do a little bit of shameless self-promotion. So as you may see on my name is Amber. I am a 30-something white woman in a larger body with glasses and auburn hair. And I am half of the Dirt podcast. And so we are a weekly podcast dealing with archaeology, anthropology, and our shared human history. And we're doing a live show this year. We did a live show last year. And that's something that, thank you, Gabrielle. And that's something that really works well with what we do anyway, because I and my co-host are in 2 different states. And so we always record on Zoom. And so last year was an opportunity to do a standard show recording, but open it up to people to watch us. And so we had a fun topic. We recorded the episode, and then we held a Q&A afterwards. And so it was an opportunity to just talk about anthropology, our sort of trajectories, science communication more generally, and sort of how we got into what we do, and just about us also. And it was really successful, and it was really, really fun. And we were able to release just the audio as an episode. And we're doing that again this year. And so I encourage all of you to both check out the show, but also think about sort of the things that you can pull from that other people are doing that may be virtual, like virtual by design. I completely appreciate how we all are sort of dependent on, like, is it safe to do something? Do I plan something and then change midstream to virtual? And so I would, there's a very strong Twitter community of sort of anthro folks and science communicators more generally, to help kind of bulk up or fill out what offerings you may be doing, whether it's for Anthro Day or Anthro Week or Anthro Year. but I'm really excited about it. This is Anthro Day is like how we do our show, like the whole point of it is sort of in alignment with the goals of Anthro Day. And so I encourage you, there are lots of people who do stuff like what we do, and maybe look for those who make video content or audio content, or things more broadly available, and not only just to use, but also to connect with, maybe collaborate with them, have them put you in touch with their network. And so this is both a plug, but also an invitation, that if there's ever anything that anyone or anything, please look to Twitter and ask, just reach out. And that's a great way to get people involved, because one of the silver linings of this horrible period that we're in is that it is sort of normalizing virtual connections and sort of asynchronous connections. And I am very excited. I'm very excited to see what everyone comes up with, and look forward to promoting it, because we have listeners everywhere. So we may have listeners who are local to you.
This is Caitlin. Thank you, Amber. And building off of what Amber said, if anyone here has any events for Anthro Day that's open to the public and would like AAA to help cross-promote those events in any of our Anthro Day communications, feel free to reach out to me directly with the Zoom links or event information, and we are happy to help cross-promote your events. We'll be doing that with the DIRT podcasts, Anthro Day Live registration link, and any of our other events who have that information available and are publicly accessible. So I want to thank everyone for attending today's call, and we look forward to hearing about your Anthro Day events. Remember to use the hashtag Anthro Day whenever you post about it on social media, and to share pictures. We love to see your event, and feel free to reach out to us with any questions. We love to help out with these events. So thank you all, and have a wonderful day.